Greetings from Vancouver, Canada, in the beautiful green Pacific Northwest. My name is Jennifer Elisabeth Dolman-Rosma, and I'm the daughter of the late Leonore Aszkanazy and Claude Dolman. I'm their middle child, growing up between my brothers John and Peter Dolman. Anna Helen Mahler-Aszkanazy was our maternal grandmother, and she is the author of the book Wir tanzten auf dem Vulkan, or We Danced on the Volcano. Yes, I had just turned 17 and had also just graduated from high school. The summer was ahead of me, and one day my mother presented me with this rather unassuming folder containing the first 3 chapters, typewritten in English, of my granny's memoir. Granny had self-translated it, and the text was full of edits by my mom and corrections. I loved the stories. I read it several times through. Many were familiar, as my mom had recounted often the fun stories of her family. I loved getting more detail, and at the end of the 3 chapters, I longed to know more. However, I had to be patient. It was another 25 years before we discovered that there was more. By this time, in the early 2000s, both our parents had passed away, and as we looked through their belongings, we came upon a box of my grandmother's writings. One of them was a very large, heavy book bound with this beautiful wooden cover and a black silken cord, and inside it was 811 typewritten pages in German. I needed a dictionary to decipher even the title page, and to my amazement, I found out that this memoir by my granny had been dedicated to me, Jennifer Elisabeth Dolman, when I was only an infant in the year 1958. We had to be patient again to understand and be able to read the memoir. We had some significant passages translated in 2004, but then my husband and I and family moved back overseas, and it wasn't really until the year 2017 to 19 that the full memoir translation project was completed. Our granny was larger than life. She was a very tall woman and had an expansive personality. She was a bright star in our childhood. We saw her at least twice a week, and she would come with pastries, and we'd play card games and laugh a lot. Our family also visited her and together at her home, and there was talk of politics and family and music. She loved good food and good opera. In the spring of 1969, we were all together in Wien, in Vienna, and that was a treasured time. Sadly, the next year she became ill with cancer and passed away in May 1970, when she was 76. Our family felt her loss, and I'm still coming to terms with the enormous loss she was to my mother's life. As my brothers and I read her memoir, we learned more about the depth of who Granny was as a woman. She was an autodidact. She developed strong opinions, which she presented in written form, some of it published, and in public exposition. She was a woman ahead of her time and became a feminist in a patriarchal society. She had a real heart for the common good, and she was able to collaborate with others and with tremendous energy and amazing focus work to bring about change, either immediate relief that was needed or long-term change. She was a woman of deep emotion, and in the memoir she expresses her highs and her lows, and very openly. I think most of all it was amazing that she retained the good family tradition of being able to laugh at herself. Well, overnight, they themselves became refugees fleeing the Nazi regime. They stayed in Switzerland briefly, hearing of her husband's murder in the Vienna prison, and shortly after moved on to London. They made a brief trip back to Switzerland, which coincided with the Evian conference, an attempt to pull together countries of the world to deal with the German and Austrian Jewish refugee problem, and that was a dismal failure. And back in London, the day she heard Chamberlain had gone to meet with Hitler, she booked 3 tickets for her and her daughters Liesl and Laurie, and they headed off to Canada, arriving on October 8th, 1938 in Quebec City. They paid their way in as farmers and moved across to the west, where they found a motel to rent, got a cow for the farm, and did handicrafts and cooked meals for guests to earn a living. Anna continued to be politically active and to advocate for an increased number of refugees to be admitted to Canada. She traveled across the country several times in the next few years, to little avail. She herself, with her own funds, helped 29 refugees, both Jewish and Gentile, to get in. And after the mid-40s, she decided to focus back on her writing a published novel, and these memoirs, as well as other works. And she continued to remain politically active, both locally and internationally. She supported the local opera and junior symphony, and she traveled and kept up with her women co-workers worldwide. I found my granny's autobiography really compelling. Her writing style is engaging, and the stories just absorbed me. It's a history lesson full of the politics of the time, the economics, religion, social concerns, of course some music. And I was amazed at the number of well-known people that she met, that she interacted with. She lived in the interwar period of Europe, and that was an unprecedented time in Europe, in the world. Many of the issues that were going on at that time are still current today. There are still countless wars going on. There are the stateless. There's an increasing number of refugees. The rights of girls and women are disrespected and abused in many places around the world. Our environment is in an extremely fragile condition. So reading this, for me, I was educated, I was challenged, I was entertained because it was just very readable. I think you'll be inspired by her story. Thank you.